So today we're going to be reading the introduction to the Federalist Papers, and this essay is written by Alexander Hamilton. From the knowledge just shared to me previously, I know that this is going to be a collection of essays known as the Federalist Papers, which was written by different men such as Alexander Hamilton, one out of the three. And this one is the first essay indicated by the number 1, written by Alexander Hamilton. When I think of the name Alexander Hamilton, I think of the famous play Hamilton, which a lot of you have heard of and seen on social media. From what I have learned previously, I know that Alexander Hamilton was a founding father and very involved in shaping the government. So he was a founding father. So I think this essay is going to have to do with something about the United States government. So I'm going to start off by reading the first sentence. After full experience of the insufficiency, I'm not sure exactly what that word means, but it sounds a lot like insufficient. And I see this root, so insufficient means lacking of funds. And I also see this root word, sufficient, which means having enough of something, and the prefix in, which means a lack of. So I think that insufficiency means to not have something or lack of. So I wonder what exactly is lacking here. I think if I keep reading, Hamilton will tell us what is lacking. Of the existing federal government. So there it is. He believes that the federal government is lacking something. And I think that indicates that there's going to be some biases here, because he's saying that the existing federal government is lacking something. So that means that he's not that fond of such federal government. You are invited to deliberate, another word that I am not too sure what it means. I'm going to continue to read to see if I could get some clues about what it means. You are invited to deliberate upon a new constitution for the United States of America. After reading the second part of the sentence, I am still unsure about what deliberate means. I think it's important to understand the definition of this word in order to understand the sentence, so I'm going to look it up. So that I found that deliberate means to consider something, to look at. So here Hamilton's asking the American people, when he says you, the audience is the American people. He's inviting the American people to consider a new constitution for the United States. I'm now going to try to summarize this sentence to make sure that I understand it. So after reading the entire sentence, I know that the you in the sentence is perhaps the people of the United States of America. And I think Hamilton wants the people of America to look at the new constitution, ratify this new constitution, or subject speaks its own importance. So just reading that first sentence, I think Hamilton is going to talk about a subject that is very important. So I wonder exactly what that subject is going to be, and I'm going to continue reading to see if I find. Comprehending in its consequences nothing less than the existence of the Union. Union. So I know that union means to kind of stay together, united, but in this case, we also know that they would call at the time the United States. So, and thinking back to that question we asked with this first sentence about the subject of importance, I think we have our answer here. The answer to the prediction that I made earlier is that Hamilton is talking about the Union and the importance of the Union to stay together. So he's saying that the Union is a very important subject because it has to stay together. So I'm going to continue reading. The safety and the welfare of the parts of which it is composed. When I read that sentence and I see parts of which it is composed, I think of like parts of a car. You need an engine, you need doors, you need seats to build this car. So here I think Hamilton is talking about the part of the Union, the parts of the Union that it's composed of. Perhaps continue reading to see what these parts are. So the fate. I'm not exactly sure what fate means, but we can look it up together because I think it is a very important word. Okay, so now that we looked up fate, we found that it has to do with someone's future. So the future. And it deals with the future, but something that cannot be controlled. So your fate is something that cannot be controlled. Okay, so that was a really long sentence with many parts to it. I'm going to try to summarize it in my own words to better understand it. Hamilton is saying it is extremely important for the Union to be united, and if they are not, there are going to be some consequences in terms of the future of the country. And I can see this because he says the fate of an empire, so the future of the country. He is trying to convince the people to think about a new constitution. If we don't get this new constitution, there's going to be some consequences. I'm going to continue reading. It has frequently been remarked. I'm not sure what remarked means, so I'm going to try to look this up. I found that the word remark means to look at something with intention. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country to decide by their conduct. Conduct, another word that I've heard, but I'm not too sure what it means. I have seen this word before because our school has a code of conduct, which are rules that we must follow. So maybe conduct is how someone acts or follows the rules. An example, okay, so their conduct and example. The important question, whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined. Destined is another word I'm not too sure I know what it means, but it sounds a lot like destiny, which I know has something to do with the future. I think destined means something happening to someone in the future. So we're going to say future. And choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. So that was a really long sentence. It starts here and ends here. I'm going to go back and reread it and try to break it down into smaller sections. So I'm going to first look at it has frequently been remarked. And that seems to have been reserved to the people of the country to decide. So that's the first section I'm going to look at. I think the first section is trying to say that it has been noted that the citizens of the United States have a right that belongs to them, which is to be able to decide something. In this first section, Hamilton is trying to push this idea of the United States or the Union has always allowed for its people to decide on what they want. So it's reserved to the people. So it's a right of the people of this country to decide. Now I'm going to look at by their conduct and example. I know that conduct, we just defined it, means how someone acts. An example means someone illustrating something. But who is this someone that we're talking? Maybe if I keep reading, I will understand. Now I'm going to look at the important question. Hamilton is probably going to ask a question next, and it's probably going to be a question for the people of the United States. Question: whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. By societies of men, he means the government. And maybe the societies of men is who he's talking about it's who the there is over here. Okay, so here's the question that I guess Hamilton was going to ask. Hamilton is asking the American people if they believe that the men that run the government can do this effectively by reflection and choice. That sounds nice. Or the government being forever dependent on accident and force, which does not sound as pleasant as the first one did. I'm going to put this question in my own words to help me better understand it. Hamilton is asking what the American people prefer, and me personally, I would prefer the reflection and choice, because accident and force sounds like the people of the government are going to be forcing the people of the United States to do things they do not want to do. Now that I think of it, didn't we learn that the British forced the colonizers to pay taxes that they did not want to pay, and that is why that they started a revolution? So maybe this accident in force was put in there for a reason. That was a lot, so let me try to summarize that sentence so I can understand its meaning. Hamilton is asking the people of the United States what they would prefer: a government that forces them into doing things, or a government that allows choices, reflection, and choice. I know he's trying to push the new constitution. Now we're going to continue to the last one. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis of which we are arrived may with propriety be regarded as a period when the decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may in this view deserve to be considered as a general misfortune. Mankind didn't know what propriety meant. But I know the root word proper that's in there, and I know that means a way of acting, which tends to be associated with higher class. I think this means acting a certain way. This was a very long sentence. I'm going to reread it to get a sense of it. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we arrived with propriety be regarded as a period when the decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may in this view deserve to be considered as a general misfortune of mankind. Okay, so I know this is kind of a dark sentence because I see words such as crisis, wrong, and misfortune, which all kind of have a sad or negative or dark connotation to them. I think Hamilton did that on purpose to show how without this new constitution, the US is going to be in a bad place. So summarizing that sentence in my own words, I think he's trying to say that the time that they are in calls for a new decision, and that new decision is a new constitution. The people of the United States need to ratify this new constitution or else. Now, in my head, I am picturing a life or death situation that Hamilton is presenting the American people with. It's either one, you let the country fall apart, or you choose this new constitution and help keep this country as great as he considers it. Looking at this entire paragraph, overall, I can say that Hamilton does not like the current Constitution, which we know is the Articles of Confederation, and he wants to change that to the new Constitution, which he believes will help the United States dramatically. And he wants the people of the United States to realize this and ratify the new Constitution. That's what he's talking about here. So from here, the next paragraph is going to be homework.